Welcome to the Tenet Podcast. My name is Todd Pearson here in Colorado, and I am here with my good friend and podcast partner, Wes Brown.
Hello, everybody.
And thank you for tuning in once again to our podcast where we highlight something art related, whether it be a visual artist and talk about their art, or a gallery owner, or sometimes like this evening, I think we'll have a little bit of both. So thank you very much for your continued listening to us, and we appreciate your support. And if you can do us a favor, this is something that we haven't asked before, I don't think, in a podcast, but if you have the ability, whatever platform that you listen to this podcast on, if you would take a moment and rate us and maybe write a review, that would be awesome. And I want to give a shout out to a couple people that I know of that have been listening pretty religiously. So I'd like to give a shout out to my friend Jamie Lamorges in Lakewood, Colorado. He's always given me some great feedback. And then Jean and Leo Tanguma up in Arvada, Colorado. She sent me a very nice message last weekend. And if you haven't checked out Leo Tanguma's interview, you should go back and listen to that. I think it's a really powerful interview about a man that is speaking out about social political issues with his art, and he's been doing it for a long time. So check those out. Tonight, I am really excited about talking to this next gentleman. His name is W. Max Thomason, aka Bill Thomason to a lot of people. Bill, how are you this evening?
I'm well. How are you guys doing?
Good, man.
Thank you.
It's good to see your face.
Yeah,
I know you've been
to see people outside the house.
You've been keeping yourself busy during this little quarantine thing that we've been doing with this pandemic. Tell our listeners what you've been up to, because I've been following it on social media, the pictures and commentary about your project.
Well, I right before everything went south with the pandemic, I bought a 60 F100 Ford pickup, and I've been rebuilding that this whole time.
And you pretty much have stripped that thing down to the frame, haven't you? Yeah,
it's a frame off. It'll be a resto mod, meaning it'll have a modern drivetrain, a Ford Coyote engine in it, 6-speed automatic transmission, all updated electronics and wiring and whatnot, and then the original body and bed on it.
Wow,
it's incredible.
Yeah, that sounds like it's going to be really cool. I can't wait to see it when it's done. And so have you always been like interested in cars and
a gearhead?
Yeah, gearhead, car guy.
I am. I've always joked I'm a recovering gearhead. I got into it very early, like at 13. I have a 67 F100 that was my paternal's grandfather's farm truck for 30 years. And I bought it when I was 13 for $1, and I built it into a show car. And then I built, at the time, right out of high school, a friend and I built the fastest race car, quarter-mile race car in Colorado, in my parents' garage right before I moved out. At the time, I don't know if it still is. That was 89, 90. And I built a few other cars, and then I took time off and toured the country in a band, and did some other careers, and now I'm kind of coming back to it. So I've got the 60 I'm building now. My nephew wants me to build a 59 with him next year, and I want to build a 57 Buick after that.
Wow.
Yeah. All of a sudden, I'm like really hardcore back into cars, and I got like 4 or 5 that I've always wanted to have, and I figure I'm not getting any younger, so what the hell?
Yeah, no doubt, man. So you're kind of a jack of all trades, it sounds like. I mean, because you play in a band, are you right? You have a band that you play in?
I'm not currently in a band. I'm working. I play drums for a couple of projects, but I'm not in a full-time band right now.
Okay. So you're a musician, you're a gearhead, you're an artist, and you're a gallery owner. And it sounds like you've had other careers in addition to that.
Yeah. My little brother likes to tease me that I'm a Renaissance man, that I know a lot. What does he always say? Something about I can do a lot of jobs, but I master none of them.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
He's a pain in the ass, but yeah, it's probably pretty true. Since I started working when I was like 12 or 13, and I've done a little bit of about everything in my lifetime.
That's cool.
It's been a lot of fun though. Yeah. I've it's everything from really hard labor jobs to the sweet sitting behind a desk in an office job and everything in between. It's been great. It's been a really good experience.
I think we have to judge our life by the journey we're on.
Exactly.
And if you, I mean, nothing against the people that do one thing all their life. My dad was he did multiple things, but he worked for one company the majority of his adult life, and there's nothing wrong with that, and made a good pension. But to have different experiences throughout life, I think is just an amazing opportunity. I've been kind of the same way. I've been 10 years in the Marine Corps. I did 10 years in nonprofit industry. I've done tons of sales and photographer, and so just a lot of different things, which is just enriches your life as a whole.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it's a matter of I just can't sit still. And beyond that, I kind of, for better or for worse, I kind of look at something and go, oh yeah, I can do that, whether I've done it before or not. So
That's awesome.
usually it's a matter of I screw something up really bad and I have to learn actually how to do it so I can fix it. But yeah,
I love that. I love that in a person. I love the people that just go, you know what, I'm just going to do that. And you don't think twice about doing it, or if you're going to, fuck it up.
Right.
Just go, you know what, I'll just figure it out, And I admire that in people that have that don't have that thing that kind of tells them, oh, you can't do that. They just jump in with both feet and just go for it.
Well, and I was really lucky, when I was young, I hung out with a group of guys, the gearhead guys building cars. And I learned way back then, you always worry about fucking something up, but you can always fix it. And that I've always carried that with me through my whole life on everything I've done. Yeah, I might fuck something up, but I'll learn how to fix it and I'll be able to fix it.
Yeah. And sometimes it's better the second time around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, plus it's an experience. It's a little bit of an adventure, and you learn something new,
Yeah. Yeah. Todd, what's up?
I was sorry. My old man ears were not working, and so I was screwing with my volume.
That's what I love about these earbuds. I can always hear with these.
Yeah.
Well, I even have earphones on, but I'm like, I need to be a little bit louder. My wife would be laughing at me right now if she heard that, because she's like, why is the damn TV so high up?
Oh, my fiance is always yelling at me about the same thing too.
Yeah.
and I've got the captions on.
I did that. My wife went to Colorado for a week, and all of a sudden I turned captions on when I was watching some show. And I get tinnitus, so there's always ringing in my ears. So the captions actually helped, but we've turned them off since she's been back. Yeah, nothing like reading when you're watching a movie.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a lot of, at that point, it's kind of like reading a book, right? So you're furthering your education.
Yeah. There you go.
I like that.
Knocking two out with one stone.
Right.
So when did you get involved in art? Did you start that first? Well, you went to college for it, right? If I remember.
It actually started way back when I was a little child.
Okay. I
was insane for any kind of artistic endeavor. I remember every birthday and Christmas, once my parents kind of got some money and my dad's career started taking off, I always got Crayola stuff. He liked those Crayola caddies or like the jumbo set of crayons and stuff. And I was constantly drawing. And in fact, it got so bad, my parents finally decided they should kind of encourage it and put me in private art lessons. Because at the time they had just enrolled me in a private school that didn't have an art program. So I used to go to this little tiny German man's apartment. I remember it really well. I was either 6 or 8, somewhere around in there. And he was very eccentric. He was really cool, but he's very eccentric. And he always wore a wife beater and a pair of Bermuda shorts. And you'd walk into his apartment, and you would have to walk, very specific channels because he had built what he called a computer in his entire apartment. To this day, I have no idea what it did or didn't do. It was just a bunch of blinking lights to me. But he was a very good art teacher. He taught me a lot about perspective, vanishing points, that kind of stuff. And in fact, my parents still have some of the art that I did back then framed in their house. And then in high school is when we had a pretty good art program in high school, and it really took off. And I got into college and found out after about 3 years and about 25 majors, found out I could get a degree in art. So I made a beeline for that. And in fact, I studied under Amy Metier in painting, and they had painting 1 through 4. And I was so into it. And I don't know if she was just being kind to me or enjoyed what I did. She created all the way up to, I think it was painting 17 or 18 for me.
Wow.
Because I just stuck with it. I loved it that much.
That's cool. I saw that you reference her on your website.
Yes.
And I've checked out her stuff too, and she's really good. She's interesting.
Her and I have lost touch, obviously. I mean, that was a long time ago, the 90s. But at the time when she taught me, she was a very, very good abstract expressionist. But she taught me how to classically paint, which I always, later on, after I got into the real world and started finding out stuff and really studying paintings and whatnot, I thought it was really interesting that somebody who came from her background of painting was teaching students the classical way to paint, you know. But I think there was 4 or 5 of us in that class that really just excelled, and all 4 or 5 of us had a totally different, you know, either style or genre that we did. And I also studied under Bob in the 80s and 90s. He's the one that did all the kinetic sculpture around town. Bob Mangold, I think is his name. Robert Mangold, I think is his name. But yeah, he did the sculpting classes at Metro when I was there.
Sounds like it was a good time to be going to Metro at the time.
It was a great time.
Good instructors.
You know, I was bouncing between that and playing in the band, so college was awesome.
Yeah, I've heard some really good things about Metro State. That you hear about it, but Boulder and I suppose CSU kind of take the big. Everybody notices them, but Metro State has some really interesting stuff going on there, I think.
Well, and when I was there, I don't know if UCD had just moved to that campus or whatever, but they were just starting to intermingle between the two schools. So I did take some art classes through UCD as well that weren't offered at Metro, kind of thing. It went back and forth. But I got to tell you, it was a fantastic program. The rest of the student body that was in the art department was fantastic. The only class I ever had a problem with was watercolors. I damn near failed it because I couldn't control the medium to save my life. And to this day, I still don't touch it.
Well, I've heard it's a difficult medium to really grasp. Yeah. So,
well, yeah, it's just so different than oil or acrylic painting. It's just a lot of, I don't know, procedures, whatever steps that you do in painting are completely backwards in watercolor, because you're using that bleed of the paper and the water and whatnot.
Yeah.
Towards oil painting, I'm not using that at all most of the time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So once you got your degree and you have a master's, correct?
Well, I'm 1 credit short of a master's. I had a little bit of an issue with the math department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Classic artist right there, ladies and gents.
Yeah, right. And I shouldn't say credit. I mean, however many credits the math class would have been. Yeah, I'm just terrible at math.
I feel your pain,
it's
man.
Embarrassing.
You know what? It actually wasn't till I went to art school and I had to take a math class that was part of their accredited, in order to be accredited. And I actually had somebody that knew how to teach artists math, and it was actually fun. But up to that point,
God, that would have been nice.
Yeah, this guy was awesome. I can't even remember his name. I can picture him. And he always had these real world scenarios. So whatever he was teaching, he would relate, like, this is what, think of it this way. And he gave you this real world scenario. And you'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. I can wrap my head around that.
That'd be such an easier way than just trying to look at a textbook and go X equals what?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So how I did math is I did mine in the summer. So and they were shorter classes. You went all day for a week. You went all week, all day for just that one class. And so you immerse yourself in it. And then every Friday you took a test. And I think it was maybe 4 weeks long. Mm-hmm. And so it was you just immersed yourself. And that made a big difference for me because I'm with you. I hated algebra and any of that kind of stuff. So that's how I did mine. And it worked out pretty well.
I don't know if that would have worked for me. I tried I was in college for 7 years. So I tried several different math classes and I just couldn't.
Yeah.
But I was also young enough that I'm sure part of it had to do with me blowing off class because it was pissing me off or I didn't like it,
Right.
In hindsight at this age, I could probably pass some kind of math class and get the credit.
Right.
Whatever.
Sure.
Exactly. So once you left college, did you just start off? I mean, you've done a ton of shows. Did you start off just doing your art, or how did that work? What was your kind of path, I guess?
The last probably 2 years of college, I did a ton of student shows, whether they were on the campus. And at the time, Metro had a gallery, they called it. It was a carriage house somewhere over in Capitol Hill that they rented out. And they put student shows in there. I did a couple shows at, I'm going to slaughter these names because it's been so long, the Emmanuel Gallery on campus, and then the St. Cahedans or whatever chapel. I don't know how to pronounce that one either. And then I got some other student shows around town. And then right out of college, I got into a show down in Cherry Hills at the Curtis Center of Arts and Humanities.
Okay.
And I won. I was one of 3 artists that won a 3-artist show out of that. And I sold a painting in both those, I think. And then from there, it just nosedived. Nobody wanted to talk to any artist that was up and coming or freshly out of college or didn't have some kind of, run of major group or solo exhibitions behind them. And I also started focusing on the band more at that time because we started going out on the road.
So you were focusing on the music then, but were you still creating at the same time? Were you still painting during that time?
I did all the artwork for the band. In fact, the first album cover is one of my collages. Did all of our posters for shows and whatnot. Tried to do t-shirts, but failed miserably at silk screening.
Well, that's a whole thing on it to itself.
Well, back to what we were talking about earlier about doing all these jobs, I just figured I could do it and got about half the stuff I needed. So it just turned out like crap, Didn't ask anybody how to do it, didn't research it. But I was doing a lot more drawing at that point because I was working on paintings, but not that drawing was more of a focus. It was just easier to do because it's easier to carry a sketchbook and pencils.
Sure, especially if you're touring.
Especially if you're right, exactly. So when I'd come home, I would paint. And at that time, I was painting really big, like 4 by 5 foot. That's one from college. So I really couldn't carry that anywhere. I could only do it when I was at home.
You typically work in a pretty large scale, don't you?
I really, if I could paint 20 by 30 foot, I would.
Uh-huh.
The problem is you can't get them through a doorway. You can't sell them. You can't haul them around, So yeah, nowadays I stick from anywhere from 1 by 2 foot to 4 by 5, 5 by 6, somewhere in there.
Okay. Explain to our listeners, and they'll be able to see your website and stuff. But explain kind of what you do, like I see all these different series that you've done, which is awesome because I totally can relate to, being interested in this subject. And it looks like you really focus in for a while on that particular thing. And then you kind of work that to the point where you're like, okay, I think I'm good here. And then it looks like you move on, but it kind of explain to everybody that's listening, like what you do, what kind of painting you do.
Okay. So when I was in college, Amy actually coined the phrase natural realism is what she called my style. So I do realism, but I don't do, hyper photographic, or sometimes not even that tight of realism, but it's very just natural in the way that I see things. I primarily work from photographs or composites. I'll get, if I can't, I like to go through friends and family's photographs and find stuff to me that's kind of tongue in cheek. Years ago, I did that more often, but nowadays, if I get an idea, I either have a photo from somebody I know, or I get an idea and I find 5 or 6 photos and make kind of a composite out of it. And I still do monochromatic underpainting. That's the way I was taught. That's the way it's always worked best for me. I do a lot of, I used to do a lot of portraiture. I don't know if total portraiture, but closer to portraiture. And now I'm kind of moving more into cityscapes.
Okay.
And right now I'm especially really engulfed in nighttime cityscapes. But like you said with the series, pretty much what I've been doing and what I've always done for some reason, it just kind of the way it came out of me. I would get an idea and I would do anywhere from 3 to 15 paintings, creating a series until I felt like I had either, conquered it and learned all I could from doing that idea or subject matter, or just the passion for that ran out. like the black and white series was kind of all over the place. But for me, the thread was it's all black and white. Well, I peaked on that one pretty quickly because there's only so much you can do with black and white. It's you learn what you need to and you move on from there. Then the kimono series, I did 14 of those, I believe, just because they were fantastic. And, painting cloth is difficult. Painting hair is difficult. That's around the time I started getting into blurred backgrounds. So that was, juxtaposing that against the very sharply focused foreground was a learning process, all that kind of stuff. And I've done that with every series, whether it's the breakup series, the kimono series, the motel sign series.
I love that it really has the feel of a photograph at times looking at some of your pieces. I love how you throw that background out of focus.
Thank you.
I don't see that a lot where your subject matter is, it's like a photograph essentially. And you have that bokeh, the background has this nice dreamy feel to it. And you do that with your paintings. And I think it's pretty awesome, man. I love that.
Well, thank you.
I love I was talking with Wes before we had you come on, and I love the out of focus series. I would hate that if those were actual photographs, because that drives me out of my mind. But I love what you did with your paintings and I don't know. It's very romantic.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. It went from, for some reason, I've just loved blurry things for a long time. And one day I was painting a picture of one of my nephews when he was like 2. And I decided to do the whole background out of focus. And that's where the whole out of focus thing started. And then it crept into going from the background to the entire painting being out of focus. And when I started doing the out of focus series, I wanted to push and twist the human form as far as I could before it went too abstract and your mind couldn't read it anymore. If you look at some of them, the arms or the legs are super skinny and sometimes even break and whatnot, but your mind still fills in. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Those are some of my favorites. Another one I really, really like is Little Dancer. The background really is impressionistic almost. You can see the wood floor, but the wall and everything.
That's interesting. You brought that one up. I started that painting in '96, and it's a photograph we took at a house party of a friend of mine, Cece, way back then. And she was, at that time, she was pursuing actively being a professional dancer. Not exotic dancer. I wanted to clarify that when she listens. And she runs a dance troupe now up in Erie, I think. But so yeah, I started that in '96, and with the band and then me DJing and clubs and whatnot, the art kind of got pushed further and further back down the line. And that got set by the wayside. And then in about 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, I picked it back up and finished it. So it was really interesting. You mentioned that background. It's really interesting how to see, for me anyway, to see how my painting style or technique kind of has changed over those years. And that painting really pointed it out to me.
No, I really like that one. That's cool.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
The other one I like, I'll just mention this one too, is on your cityscape is Midnight Train Going Anywhere. There's just something about it. I just love the whole thing. It's really neat.
Thanks. That one actually sold, surprisingly.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I didn't think anybody wanted, but yeah, that one was done during a period of when I was wanting to work with the out of focus stuff, but I was also trying to get a little bit tighter foreground imagery. So it's a little more towards the photorealism, but I didn't want to get that tight with it. But I really enjoy that painting. That one, Bahir Dar and Pieces of 8, I think are just really good with the blending the sharp foreground and the way out of focus background.
I really like the blue series that you did. There's the one in particular that I really like is the One to Blame. There's something just exquisite about that. The female.
Is that the yellow background?
Yeah, the yellow background.
Yeah. That sold almost immediately after I finished it.
I can imagine, man. It's a great piece.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love how you paint the female form. And I can tell that you love females, because
what gave it away?
I mean, not only the content, but I mean, you can tell that there's a connection there and that you have I can relate because I definitely have an affinity for the female form. I haven't done anything along those lines in a long time. And I'm kind of hankering to get back to something along those lines. But that whole Blue series is just phenomenal. And that One to Blame is spectacular. So I could see why that would sell really quickly. It has a lot of emotion in there.
Well, that whole series had a lot of emotion. I stole the page from Picasso, and I was actually at a pretty low point, mentally, emotionally. And I was struggling to try to figure out a new series to paint. And I decided to start painting in blue because like Picasso, I was, I guess, somewhat depressed, but more just melancholy. And it turned into like, 12 or 13 piece series. It really was the best therapy I've ever done for something, It really got me through a tough spot personally, which was really cool. I didn't, you always hear about the healing power or therapeutic power of art or whatnot. And I'd never really had a sustained experience with that. I've had little one-offs with a drawing or pastel or painting or something. But that entire series, I think it took me about 5 or 6 months to do that entire series. And the way I felt when I went into that series was I might be in this melancholy pit for a year or more. So I still have tubes of blue paint in my studio waiting to use it. I stocked up just in case, I was going to keep going in that blue period. So
you worked through it and worked your way out of it, and then you're ready to move on to something else, huh?
Yeah. It was, I don't remember which series came after that, but yeah, it was fantastic. It really turned things around a lot quicker than I would have expected. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like that weight wasn't going to come off my shoulders very easy. And it actually did.
Have you kind of figured out what it was that the act of painting really helped as far as your melancholy?
It's a combination of things. It was the focus. It was the creation itself of something, going, from a blank canvas to a completed painting in anywhere from 4 hours to 4 days. I mean, some of those are pretty small, so I kicked them out pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
But you get in that process, and I just said process like Dan.
Everybody
take a drink, everybody.
Everybody take a shot. Oh, he's gonna kill me. So where was I? Damn it. You start working on painting, and you get in a zone, and everything just transcends and leaves you, and all of a sudden, not that you're automatic in your motions or anything, but your mind just kind of shuts down and lets everything else go and somehow just kind of focuses on what you're doing. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
To where you're not just tumbling over and over again those thoughts that were dragging you down or stressing you out or little mistakes that you hyper focus on, that kind of stuff. You just let it all go while you're lost in that painting. And then the painting itself just takes over, and all of a sudden your idea turns into something completely else, and it's fantastic. It just it lifts your spirits that way.
So you think it's like your subconscious in the background, kind of like working through that stuff while you're focused on something else? And
exactly, there's no conscious or direct thought at that moment. Like you said, it moves back into your subconscious, and for whatever reason, it just processes better back there. I guess, I don't know, but yeah, you're not directly just when you get in a bad mood or a bad thought or a bad feeling, you can just pound yourself to death with it. You get lost in a painting, or like drumming, sit down and writing a song, or just playing the drums or something. You do something manually that just takes over, and everything else just kind of slowly gets pushed out without it being a conscious effort, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, most definitely.
I mean, we had this pretty much that same conversation, or kind of the same conversation with Dan in his interview, where he was talking about how therapeutic doing art was for him, and how it really alleviated some things in his life, physical and mental pain.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting, because it is meditative. I will say that I'm the happiest and the most efficient when I'm creating, and I'm not even, sometimes it's like I'm actually watching myself work. Like I'm like divorced from the process, right? So it's almost like having someone else is doing setting up the lights and working the camera, and I'm actually kind of just observing there. Like it's like two parts of me. It's hard to explain, but.
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I've tried to explain to people before too. And it's I want to use the term blackout, but it's not, because you're there, you're aware, you're doing it, but it is almost like standing back and watching yourself do this. You know what I mean? Well, you do know what I mean exactly. But yeah, it's hard to explain to people. But once you get into it, it's an incredible feeling. And I found throughout my lifetime, Jesus, anytime I'm using my hands, it's when I can get into those states. You know what I mean? Like with the body work on this truck, or when I'm painting, or when I'm playing the drums, or when I'm doing landscaping, whatever. As long as it's not something tedious behind a desk or IT wise, I can totally get to that point where everything else just kind of melts away, and all I'm doing is focusing on exactly what's in front of me. You know, there's no outside distraction or thought.
You need to be active. And I can tell that you're very industrious, even before you related that, you know, even as a child, you were always kind of doing stuff. But I could just tell from the first moment that I met you in the gallery, I thought this guy's like really industrious. Like he has a lot of stuff going on. I could feel it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think I kind of give off that impression, whether I mean to or not. I think I always seem busy to people. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes it's a little off-putting, and I don't mean it to be.
No, I don't think it's off-putting at all. I like people like that because it motivates me. Because I'm pretty lazy.
Oh, I am too at times. I can totally spend the day watching TV.
You know, I'm happiest when I'm working, and I think that's what I see in you. I guess is that, you know, and people that are like you, that are industrious and that are real, have a really active creative life. They're happy when they're working, and so that's what they do. They're always figuring out a project or working on something that, you know, whether it be a truck or painting or whatever. So
yeah.
How did you come up with the whole abstract portrait thing? Like what was the catalyst for that one, man? Because that's kind of, it's a little out there and it's cool, but it's totally
which abstract portrait?
The abstract portraits that you have on your website.
Oh, all of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Sorry,
the whole series. And it looks like it mutated a little bit over the course of time. Is that true or not?
Yeah. Well, and you know, if you look at any of the series that go beyond like 3 or 4 paintings, they all kind of mutate somewhat. You know, whether they get tighter or looser, or I change, you know, the setting or something. You know what I mean? But the abstract portraits. So that started. Well, I think the first one's the girl with the pink hairband that her face is completely smeared.
Mm-hmm.
I watched. I hope this doesn't sound derivative, but and I hope you guys don't mind if I pace a little bit.
No, it's fine.
Not at all.
I tend to pace when I talk. So I had watched a really, really good documentary on Gerhard Richter on Netflix.
Okay. And
you know, he was a phenomenal photorealist earlier in life, and nowadays he tacks these great big canvases up on a wall and throws, you know, puts paint on them and then uses a spatula to smear it. That's all he does, is just drags the paint across the canvas, and whatever it turns into, that's it. It kind of got me to thinking about, you know, I've always been enthralled with blurry, out of focus stuff, and I was kind of wondering how I could apply that to the human form. And it started out with the girl with the pink hairband, just totally dragging that face out. And I would have liked to have kept more definition in the face, but as I found out, there's no way to do that. I would have had to have gone back in and faked it, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep it spontaneous and you know, energetic of how it was done. And then I kind of digressed into, I guess not digress, but I kind of mutated over into using a lot of mostly primary colors. And then trying, instead of just one body part or the face or whatever, I started smearing the entire canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how far, again, just like the out of focus series, seeing how far I could push it before it became too abstract and your mind wouldn't read what it was.
Let me ask you this, because I love that one, what is it called? The Beauty of Movement or something, I think is what it's.
That's the first one he talked about.
Movement of Beauty. I love that. And it's interesting to see the other ones and how it evolved in that series.
One of my favorite ones is the one with the kind of light blue background. It's almost a full figure. Yeah. The female. Is it lost in the plot? Yep. I suppose I should have my website up so I can read my paintings.
You know what, man? I love that like, I know you know which paintings they are, but as far as the titles and stuff, you're like, okay, which one is that, you know? So
yeah. And I really should know, because I get pretty wordy with my titles sometimes.
Well, and that's another thing I was going to ask you about. I mean, I don't want to take you away from your thought on this. So go ahead and talk about that particular one, The Lost in the Plot with the blue background?
So that one, I think that's the last one I did in that series, or close to it. That's when it definitely had mutated to mostly primary colors, and I was, smearing the entire canvas with a silk screen spatula. And I was just trying to push it. It was the whole series was experimentation. After the first one was an experimentation of what colors should I put where, so when I start dragging the paint across the canvas, they still read and they stand out the way that I think they should. So because flesh tone is always going to stand out differently than a shirt. Hair is always going to stand out differently than eyes, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it really was an experimentation of seeing what worked best and what read the best. And to me, that's probably, the pinnacle of that series in that sense. I think it reads the best and is the strongest compositionally.
Do you ever take flack because you experiment, you do what you feel, which I, as an artist and as a photographer, I love. Like you're not pinned down by a particular series or you definitely have a style. I can see that thread that runs through it. But because your subject matter is so diverse, and I do this as a photographer, and I've taken a lot of flack for it because they're like, people were like, I don't get what you do. Like, you seem like you're all over the board.
Because you jump around so much.
Yeah, jump around so much.
Yeah.
And to me, I always say, well, as a photographer, I'm like, I don't want to make the same photograph over and over and over again. Like I know photographers that they're like, this is my style, or this is my light, and I'm like, that's so boring. So I let the subject matter speak to me, and I light things. I let the subject dictate the lighting and not the other way around. Like, hey, well, this is what I do. So this is the way it's done. But I kind of see, I relate to your art because you do what speaks to you and you explore what you want to explore. And have you had a hard time with that as an artist?
That's really hard to answer because there's been points in my career where I thought, God damn, this is killing me. You know what I mean? Like people want to see the same thing over and over again, but changed every time. Like the motel signs. Mm-hmm. That series did really well. And it sold to a very different crowd than what my cityscapes or my portraits sell to. As a gallery owner, I've actually talked to some artists about, hey, you need to kind of stick with this or stay in this vein versus, doing abstract expressionism and realism and pastel and paint, you know what I mean? But as a gallerist, that was more of coming from, I need to be able to present a common thread of your work to the public. As an artist, I could give a shit. Mm-hmm. I don't mean that to sound as bad as it just did, but it's just like when I would, in writing songs or whatever, I'm not, or even with the truck, I'm not doing something for somebody else. I'm creating for me. If it happens to catch somebody else, make somebody else feel something, hell, go with their damn sofa, whatever. Great. You know what I mean? But I'm not painting to please somebody else or the general public or to up sales, I guess. Is that kind of the line of questioning you were going with there?
It's a good, you showed us both sides of the coin, right? So yeah, you should, you paint for yourself and you don't care what anybody else thinks. And if you like it, great. If you want to spend money and buy my art, fantastic. I'm happy to sell you a piece and I hope it speaks to you. But it's interesting to hear the flip side of that as a gallery owner going, hey, I need to see, some consistency in the work so that when I'm trying to show it in my gallery and sell you as an artist, that people can, they understand. Right. So, I mean, it's two different aspects of the art world that you just related right there. And which is cool because, I don't think people think about that. They're either most people are either a gallery owner or they're an artist. You happen to be both, and you have a foot, firmly planted and you've been doing it long enough that you understand both sides of it,
Right. Well, yeah, it took me a couple of years as a gallerist to kind of get that side of it. But yeah, now at this point in my career, I am coming around to that and kind of realizing that stuff. The other thing I wanted to say about that too is I think it's been more of, as a gallerist, speaking to artists about that kind of thing, it's been more of a sense of they've got one abstract expressionist painting, one realism painting, one pop art painting. Like there's no 2, 3, 4, 5 piece continuity that could push that, to the public as a sale. So when somebody walks in and says a different painting or a different drawing or a different collage in, one in every genre of art that there is, and they're not going to see a common thread in the artist's work, if that makes sense. But as an artist, I could just give a shit. I want to do what I want to do because it's every time I do something, like I said earlier, every time I start a series, it's because one, I have this idea, I got to get it out of me. But two, there's something there that I need to learn. There's something that's going to teach me, whether it's about, getting how to get a shadow correct, or what colors to mix to get this one tone I need, or compositionally, what's going to really make this pop,
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So when I think of somebody that, they have the same kind of feel and look, I think of people like Thomas Kincaid or Terry Redlin, and they have like this trick that they, and it's the theme that runs through all, like Thomas Kincaid is the painter of light. So all his stuff has a warm lights in the window, and it's great commercially because, people that are gravitated to it knows that there's going to be this endless, painting collection that they can continue to collect.
Right.
And, as a painter, and like you said, where you're kind of exploring different genres or different techniques based on what you're feeling, it may be harder to sell commercially, like you're saying, but man, that just gives you a freedom. I'd like to see what Terry or Thomas Kincaid is painting when he's not painting his light series. Like, is he doing some really abstract shit,
Right. Yeah. Is he doing like this really great Dali-esque surrealism,
He's dead, by the way.
There.
Well,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd.
I actually had somebody call the gallery and want to try to sell me a Kincaid to resell in the gallery last year.
So
it's like, it's not really my kind of art.
No, right? and not, so I don't want to go down we are going to go down this rabbit hole because I think it's interesting. So Thomas Kincaid was, not only was he this well-known artist, and tons of people, collected his stuff, and still, I'm assuming, collect his stuff. But what was that guy like after hours? Because he was like a coke addict. Like he died. I think he died of a heart attack from doing.
Oh, did he really?
I think he did. I'll have to Google.
Wow.
Maybe you can
Google while you're talking.
But yeah, it's like he's painting these warm, beautiful little streetscapes that I had a grandmother that loved Thomas Kincaid, and every Christmas, it was easy for me to buy for her because she was at that age where she really didn't need anything. So I'd always go find her a Thomas Kincaid calendar. And I actually when I see Thomas Kincaid paintings, it gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling because I think about my grandmother. And I'm sure that's why people collect them, because it's romantic and they can relate to it on some ways. But then you got this guy that's like living, it sounded like a rock and roll lifestyle. Like,
I didn't know that about him, though. That's hilarious.
Yeah, so he died at 54. Family initially said he appeared to have died of natural causes, but autopsy said it was acute intoxication from alcohol and Valium.
Oh, Valium. I thought it was cocaine for some reason.
Interesting.
So maybe there was some stuff going on that he obviously had to deal with, but I was thinking, man.
Well, when you said coke, I was thinking, how does he paint those? Like, to me, I would compare him to like the modern version of Norman Rockwell. And in my head, I'm thinking, how's a coked out guy doing these like Norman Rockwell-esque type little, cottages in the woods in wintertime paintings? You would think he'd be doing like some just terrible abstract stuff.
Well, and then just to mix it up a little further, it said, following his death, his wife sought a restraining order against his girlfriend. So there you go.
He was living a rock and roll lifestyle behind selling paintings to grandma and totally like rocking out with the drugs and alcohol.
Shit, am I living my life wrong?
Are
what
we
the
all?
hell?
I'm not doing enough drugs. I need to come to Colorado.
I'm not a philanderer. What the hell's going on? Something's wrong.
Welcome to TMZ, by the way, now that we're slamming people, right?
Right. Oh, it's terrible.
Oh, man.
Man. It's too funny.
Well, that was an interesting rabbit hole.
Right? Okay, so now let's slam Picasso. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, we have a lot on Picasso, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh my God. Edward Weston, and all the ladies he, slept with.
Yeah.
But
well,
anyway.
It's easy to pick on dead famous people.
Yes.
Well, and you know what?
And they don't sue you.
Right.
And every Christmas, like I get a little melancholy because I miss my grandma. She passed away 6 years ago. Man, time's just flying. But anyway, come Christmas time, I feel like I should be at one of those mall calendar places, like looking through the Thomas Kinkade. And sometimes I'll go in there and I'll just kind of look and see. Oh, I'll look at the Thomas Kinkade because it makes me think of my grandmother.
Well, that's like Matisse always said, art should be like the most comfortable chair you can think of.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Him and Picasso were great friends. Picasso thought art should be the most obtuse, uncomfortable thing you could look at. And Matisse was the exact opposite with it. Right. But that's kind of like what you're talking about, people getting, I don't want to say pigeonholed into a style, but artists who get a style and stick with it for whatever reason, whether they love it, it sells, it's just what emotionally comes out of them, whatever it is. I've just never been that artist. You know what I mean? Like for one series, I might want to make a nice, comfortable chair. And the next series, I might want to make you pee your pants when you look at it. You know what I mean? I don't think any of my stuff is that obtuse, but or galling or anything, but I'm just not, I guess maybe someday I'll find something that I want to paint over and over again. But to this point, I haven't yet.
Yeah. I think that's good though. I think it's always good to change it up or evolve, you naturally evolve anyway. You're never in the same spot.
Right. You can't keep doing something and not evolve in it. Right.
Right. Yeah, your Day of the Dead stuff, I could say that it could probably scare the pants off you if you're not careful. Although the women you can tell are very pretty. So, but
I guess that's the one common theme through my paintings is the female, right? Female form.
Yeah.
I've had a couple different gallery owners tell me that my paintings are like little vignettes of life, of daily life, because I don't think any of them are like too far out there in a sense of I'm putting a bunch of stuff together in a scene that shouldn't normally go together, or making it surreal or abstract. You know what I mean? To me, it's just always a little snapshot of some moment in life, and not like some basketball or rock star's life, just a normal average person's life.
I see that in your art, Bill. There's definitely and I imagine other people that view your art feel the same thing. But when I look at it, I start getting this little running narrative in my head about what has gone on. There's a little, like you said, it's a vignette, and you kind of take it from there, that captured moment. And in your head, at least for me, I have this narrative going about what has just transpired or what is about to happen. Oh,
that's awesome.
Which is great.
I love hearing what people see or think when they look at my stuff. And that's fantastic, because a lot of times I think I get to an end of a painting and it's got some backstory all of a sudden that was never there in the first place. But, as I've worked on it, it's kind of grown, and all of a sudden now everything's kind of going on in my head, and I'm looking at it and it's just all of a sudden this happened because this and this happened before it. And now this is going to happen after it. And I'm like writing a little, short or movie script in my head for it kind of thing. So it's interesting to hear that somebody else kind of feels, has the same reaction to that stuff. That's actually pretty cool.
The other thing I think is interesting is, and a lot of artists don't do this, but you actually have like a little narrative that you write a lot of times with your paintings, talking about, what was going on during that period of life or whatever. A lot of times, artists will just kind of leave it up to the viewer to kind of make their own.
Well, yeah, and I prefer to do that myself, but the one thing I've learned to listen to owning a gallery is the public. And everybody who's not an artist or a creative type wants some kind of a story. They want to either know your process, take a shot. They want to know, Dan's going to kill me. He's just going to kill me.
Love it. That's 3.
I think he said his was like 52 or something. Anyway.
Oh, he actually counted him. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, his friend did who made the smart ass comment about it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So either they want to know the process of the painting, they want to know the story about the painting, or how you came into it. So I'm terrible. Not right now for some reason, but usually I'm terrible talking about myself. I just don't like to do it. So I figured, especially with my website, if I give just kind of a little brief explanation, it kind of helps people relate, I think, more. And plus, it's pretty easy when this is number 5 out of 7 paintings. That's a pretty easy little description to put on something.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I was telling Lorenzo this, I think it was Lorenzo, when a lot of times when I'm shooting photography, I'm thinking, or even looking at somebody else's stuff, I'm often thinking, what are they trying to tell me? What are they trying to convey to me? And I don't know if that's necessarily fair. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to say, when I'm shooting something, a landscape or whatever, what am I trying to convey here? Because a lot of times I look at my stuff and I'm like, God, I just don't know if it says anything. And I don't even know if that's a fair question to ask yourself or another artist, but you should evoke some kind of.
Should you? I
don't know.
See, I think that is a little bit of a cumbersome thing to put on yourself when you're trying to create something.
Right.
For me, it's even if the painting takes me 2 weeks to complete, I'm always in the moment with the painting. It's never about the finished product. It's never about, it is my original idea coming through, because like I said earlier, at some point, every painting takes over and you go down a different road with it, because it's not, for me anyways, there's, maybe like Thomas Kincaid, it's never did that. It's always, his idea, here's the finished product. You know what I mean? Like
right.
there was no gap to bridge there. But for me, at some point, the painting always takes over, and it still comes out looking like in a broad stroke, looking like my original idea, but something in that painting has changed and it's become its own thing. So I don't, and I suppose some artists do sit down and say, okay, what am I trying to convey? How am I going to get that across? Is it working? But I don't think you necessarily have to do that.
Okay.
And I think it would also lend itself more to what's your medium, what genre. So if you're working as a sculptor in classicism or realism, classical or realism, you definitely don't need to worry about it, because it's going to be right there in your finished 3D product, right? Photographer, I think, to me, any kind of photography, you could totally let that go, because you're going to know instantly if you're getting your idea across, right? I mean, it's an instantaneous thing. A painter, like maybe if you're more of a painter that does one set style or one set idea or image or something over and over again, you don't have to worry about it. But I guess it would just depend on the person, really. No matter what medium or genre you're in, it just depends on you as an artist, I think.
Yeah. No, that's a great explanation.
And I've had this kind of, not this exact discussion, but similar discussions with several artists that come through the gallery. It's changes with every person's different. Just when you think you can figure out what an artist is about or thinking, you're completely wrong. Like I'll have somebody come to my dorm and be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what they're going to, what they want to show me or something. And then all of a sudden they're going to show me like really kitschy pop art instead of, I was thinking abstract expressionism. You know what I mean? So it's just one of the questions I don't think you can ever answer. It just changes, constantly and consistently. It just changes in everything.
I could see that.
Hope that wasn't too wordy.
No, that was good.
No, I love that. That was great. Yeah, that was well said.
I think for me, like when I'm photographing, it's all about the process. Like I'm totally engaged with the process at the time. And as soon as it's done, I'm almost like over it. Like
disconnected.
My part is done now. It belongs to it belongs to the universe or somebody else. It is something else. And like, I've already done my thing. And so for me, it's all about the process. And that might sound weird to some people. Like, what about viewing it after the fact or showing it to people? But by the time it's done, all said and done, I'm kind of over it, man. When I'm packing up my gear, like I've done my work. And yeah, there's some stuff I do on the computer after the fact, but for the most part, it's done in my head,
Well, and at this point in my career, I totally understand what you're saying. And I'm kind of in the same place. In the early days of my career, the beginning of the late 80s, early 90s, well, even into the late 90s even, I couldn't have been more opposite of that. Every time I finished a painting, it was like a child. It wasn't going to go anywhere. Nobody was going to see it. That doesn't make much sense about children, but it's a really bad analogy. I apologize. But it was
put it in a closet and shut the door.
Threw some bread through the door once in a while. Oh my God, that's terrible. But it was a very personal, emotional thing. And nowadays, probably for like the last, 20? So 10, 15 years, maybe give or take. As soon as they're done, I want them out the door. Like I am tired of looking at these things now. And that sounds very callous and hard edge as well. And I don't mean it that way. I mean, I don't have a need anymore to keep them around, to look at them, to make sure they're finished, to make sure what I was wanting to do came across. That, I've gotten to a point to where I for the most part, don't second guess myself anymore. When I think a painting's finally, I shouldn't say finished. At some point I give up on a painting. I don't think a painting's ever completely finished. You just have to stop at some point and let it go. Otherwise, you're either going to overwork it or ruin it. Hope that makes sense.
No, totally.
No, it does.
It's well put.
Yeah.
Like, I totally agree. Like, at some point you're like, okay, I've done what I can with this. There's things that I might change, or I would have changed or done differently. And I'll kind of cache that in the back of my mind for the next time I'm in a similar situation or whatever. But yeah, I'm of the same, mindset there. I'm like, all right, I got to leave it. And a lot of times after I'm done with it, like, I can't even stand to look at it. Like, I'm like, I'm too close to it. I have to give it some room and let it breathe for a little bit. And then I can come back with like fresh eyes and go, okay, I would have changed these things, or I'd have done something different, but I can relate to it a little bit better if I give it a little time.
Yeah, totally. And it's just like writing a song too. Sometimes it's better to get to a point and put it away for three to 6 months, then come back to it. Just because you've been so engrossed with it, you're so focused on it, you might not be seeing, this is a terrible word to use, but might not be seeing the damage you're doing to it. Whereas if you set it down for a while and walk away, when you come back with a fresh set of eyes, you might realize, hey, it's either done, or, the thing I was so focused on isn't the part I need to focus on. I need to focus on this other part over here. It just changes your perspective. But again, like you said, once I'm done with something, I'm done with it. At this point in my career, I've gotten to a point where I said, I try not to self-doubt myself. I try not to question myself too much. So when I feel like I'm at the point where I need to just stop working on the painting, I keep saying finished, and I never call a painting finished. I always just stop working on them. That's it. There's no point to revisit it, because I got as far with it as I could, and I got as much out of it as I could, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this brings us to kind of the second half of this interview.
Okay.
And I want to talk about the gallery that you run. But before we get into that, I want to, you mentioned something very important, and we've talked about this numerous times. People that buy art, they want to have a connection not only to the art, but also to the artist. They want to know who you are as an artist. That's true, right?
There's as a gallerist now, as how I'm speaking, as a gallerist, there's two buying crowds. The one is, they want to know something about the artist. They want to know something about the painting. They want to know something about the process. They want the backstory. They want something. Then there's, I want this because it's going to match my sofa in this one room crowd, which I sell a little bit to, but not very much. That's really not my gallery's foothold, path, whatever you want to call it. Those kind of galleries are in other parts of town, which we will not discuss, but because I don't want to badmouth anybody. But really, it's my buying crowd is they either become collectors of that artist, or they become collectors of the gallery, because they like the gallery story, they like my story, they like whoever's showing story, they like the story behind the show, they like the theme of the show, all that kind of stuff. It all kind of goes hand in hand.
I could see that. And I know that you probably get very few people that walk into your gallery and are thinking, I'm going to purchase something that goes well with that recliner that I have in my living room,
So April was my 5-year anniversary, and I can think of 3 sales in those 5 years that they bought it because it matched something.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, that's totally fine. People do that. I have no issue with that.
Sure.
I just generally don't get that crowd in my gallery.
No, because your gallery, and for people that don't know, we're talking about Bitfactory Gallery in the heart of the art district on Santa Fe, and it is definitely of the upper echelon of galleries that you will find in that art district in town.
Damn, thank you.
For,
Appreciate
for sure. Hands down, like all the exhibits that I've seen at your gallery are really well curated, and the art is always phenomenal. Like I know that I'm going to be, when I walk through those doors of your gallery, I'm going to see something that's really good every time.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. It took me, I feel like I'm still learning the process, and what to do. And I just said process again. Oh, it's too funny. Anyway, sorry. I feel like I came into this not having any gallery experience. And initially I'd been down there for about 3 years in a studio that I was renting. And I wasn't even wanting to do a gallery that, it just, the building came up for sale. It was way before the real estate bubble took off, the commercial bubble here in Denver. And honestly, it gave me somewhere to show in Denver at least once a year, and everything just kind of worked together. As far as, it took me about a year to get my feet under me, to get a general idea of what to do. And thankfully in that year, maybe the first 2 years I was there, I met just a slew of fantastic artists and fantastic people. And I had also, had met other artists in my other walks of life as well. So I was able to throw together some pretty good shows. And then I started learning how to put together an exhibition, what artists should show together, how to hang, which is hugely important. You kind of take for granted hanging stuff because most of us just do it in our homes once in a while, Well, I hang every month, anywhere from 15 to 75 pieces. So you've got to learn how to hang. You've got to have an eye for it. And you've got to learn, how do I run a thread through this entire show? So as you walk through the show, around my gallery, right to left, through the 2 rooms, there's a common thread of something carries you to that show. So you don't go from one piece to the next piece and go, what the hell just happened? There's got to be that common thread that just pulls you through that show.
You got to have flow, right?
Yes. Everything's got to flow. And for me, like I said, I try to flow right to left as soon as you come in the front door. So it goes, down the wall, through the back to the second room and back up towards the desk at the front door again. And usually people walk that and then see it. I don't want to sound boastful or anything, but I've been told a few times that I did how good a job the show, I don't want to say this, how well the show was hung and presented. And I really have, started to take pride in that and really tried to work on that because, the first thing you do when you walk into a gallery is the presentation. It's not just the art piece itself. It's how does it look in that room? How does it look with everything else in that room? How does it look with all the other pieces in that room? And is there continuity? Is there flow? Or if there isn't, is there a reason that there isn't? And is it obvious? You can't really have subtle little hints and changes as in a gallery, as when you're hanging stuff. It's got to be bam in your face. Meaning I can't I'll hang these 2 pieces together and I hope the crowd gets my little idea behind it. You've got to, these 2 pieces work well together or they don't. So either together or not. There's no subtlety, I guess. And how many times did I just say subtle?
You're fine, man. Well, yeah. I mean, when we were talking, so in my head, when you were talking about that, I was thinking about the last show, and Wes got to see that show too, the No Show, and thinking about the pieces in that show. And there's definitely a flow. Like I definitely walked right to left, so it works. So what is that process like when you're curating a show like that? Do the artists bring you the work and then you pick? Or do you go to their studio and you look and say, this is what I want for this particular show? You've already chosen the artists, and so then you're just looking for that one piece that you think is going to be cohesive. What is that process like?
So that process varies a little bit from show to show. But my primary way of curating is artists either send me a link or send me, if I'm going to do 4 or 5 artists, they're going to do 4 or 5 pieces each. So they email me images for 10 to 15 pieces, and I curate from those. There's only one artist that I actually go to his gallery, his studio, not his gallery, sorry. But everybody else emails me or sends me links to their portfolios, and I go through them and curate from that. No Show, the one you just mentioned, has become a monster to curate. It's my only reoccurring show. It happens every year. I call it No Show because it's the slowest time of year. It was kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. It's usually my only 2-month long show. Usually exhibitions are a month long. And what it started out of was I just hung a bunch of my art and a bunch of my friends' art. Artists I'd met through the gallery or that were a bartender at my favorite local, or you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. Because I didn't know that many people my first couple of years, and it stuck. And now I've got so many artists that want to participate, and it's invite only, that I had to do 1 piece per artist, and I had 25 pieces this year. And there was about 10, 15 more artists that I would have loved to have included. I just couldn't do it. That's one limitation of my gallery is the size of it. If I had my druthers, I'd have, like a 35 to 5,000 square foot gallery. That way I wouldn't have to worry about not hanging some people because I run out of room. But, every exhibition is different, like I said. So like the one I hung in March, that's still waiting to open because of all this pandemic crap. Open Spaces, the only theme in that is landscape. And I picked, originally I had 7 artists and they all do landscapes extremely different. I've got one that's a digital artist. I've got one that is a impressionist painter, one who does pastels, one who does abstract landscapes, and I had some others too that I wanted to use, but they couldn't participate. So for that one, it's just simply just landscapes. Some of the other shows that are going to be canceled this year, one of them was just figurative. So it could literally be anything you want to paint, but it's in the figurative form or style. Then I've got a solo show by Tadashi Hayakawa coming up. He's an abstract expressionist. He's the artist who's the only artist that I go to his studio to look at his stuff, just because he doesn't have a computer or anything. In some shows, it's literally because I think 2 artists or 3 artists or 4 artists, I think they might be completely different medium and genre, but I think they'll show really well together. So it just changes with every exhibition. I'm kind of all over the place. And that's, again, I'm learning. So I may be doing this completely ass backwards and I don't even know it, but it's worked thus far.
Well, I'd say it works really well. Like you have a great eye for it. And I love the size of your gallery. Like that's one of the things I really like about it. Some galleries you go into and they're just, cavernous and they go on. And at some point I'm like, okay, I'm kind of over it. And with you, it's like, with Bitfactory, I get just the right amount, I get
thank you.
I get the appetizer, I get the main course, and then I get the dessert all in one fell swoop. And actually, you know what? A lot of times if I start off on a first Friday at your gallery, it makes the rest of the night really difficult because I'm sorely disappointed. And I'm not knocking other, I don't mean to sound like a snob or something, but I mean, it's just so, like with that no-show, I was like, man, this is phenomenal. Like every single piece was fantastic. And I'm not just saying that. And then I would go, down the street a little ways and hit some more. And I'm like, ugh, like, I almost should have started other places, come back and then finished off with Bitfactory so that I could cleanse my palate and then go home. And,
Oh, it's hilarious. Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do. It's nice to have that validation because as a gallerist, I just have no idea if I'm, I'm sure there's a better way to do it. And I've talked to other gallery owners down there, and it seems like the way I'm doing it is not like anybody else's business model, which is fine. We all got our own things. But I also made the very conscious decision when I opened the gallery that I did not want to be another abstract expressionist gallery or another sculpture gallery. I wanted to cover everything and everybody. I wanted to be that gallery that once I got recognition and, kind of street cred, people, whether they're just coming out of college, art school, career change, whatever, those up and coming and emerging artists could actually get their foot in their door and have a show at an established gallery that wasn't a tourist gallery or some, a clothing store, coffee mug and paintings in the back kind of gallery,
right.
Yeah. So I'm very appreciative of the nice things you're saying about Bitfactory. I do really appreciate that. It's taken a while to get here and I'm very proud of it, but I know there's still a lot more for me to learn about the whole process too.
Sure. You got to always evolve and aspire to bigger and better things, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I really do appreciate you mentioning the size of the gallery is a nice feel and everything. And, it's a good friend of mine a couple of years ago equated it to Do you want to see your favorite band in a very small, intimate venue, or do you want to go see them at the Pepsi Center? Well, you want to see them in a very, very small, intimate venue, right? Because you're right there. It's much more intimate. It's much closer. It's much more real. So and I do appreciate that. It's just sometimes it's a real bummer. I've got to either not include artists or turn artists away from exhibitions because I just don't have the room. That's the only drawback I feel I have right now. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I love my gallery and I have a wonderful time doing it. It's just kind of hard to turn people away sometimes.
Sure. Well, the nice thing is that you're never hurting for quality art to show.
No.
Right.
There's so many fantastic artists that are either just squeaking by making a living or below that, because they haven't caught on somehow. But there's just so many of them that I can't believe other people aren't letting them show. And I can't tell you how many times I have artists come through my door that they're surprised that the gallery owner talks to them, that the gallery owner is kind of, I like to think I'm a nice guy and down to earth, and that I can actually, if their art is, I don't want to say high enough quality, but it's a decent art, I don't mind showing it. If it's terrible art, I'm not going to show it. I mean, that's just not, I don't think that's helping anybody out. Right. Artists have to grow and get to a point to where their art is to a point where it can be viewed. God, I hope it doesn't sound bad, but
no, not at all. I think it's pragmatic too, because you're not going to sell anything if it's crappy art, right? And having the emerging artists go back and give them, maybe, I don't know if you give them tips, but they got to come back and up their game, and you want good quality stuff, so people come back to the Bitfactory,
right,
knowing that they're going to see good stuff,
right? That's just it. Yeah, I've got to. Although the art district has fantastic foot traffic because of First Fridays and everything, I still have to be able to present art on my walls that is going to continually draw people back to the gallery. So yeah, right. If somebody just drawing or painting last week, I'm not going to put their stuff up unless it's just phenomenal,
Right.
And yeah, there are some of the artists that I work with that they do ask my opinion and I do give it to them, but I'm not that kind of gallery owner to where I'm giving people my unsolicited opinion or advice or anything like that. I didn't like those kind of guys when I was a struggling artist, and I don't want to be that to other struggling artists, And the nice thing about that I do, kind of, because you brought up sales, I built Bitfactory so I didn't have to worry about sales in the gallery. And I know that sounds completely counterintuitive, but I didn't want my business model to be based on I've got to sell X amount of dollars every month, otherwise I go under. So that's why I built Bitfactory Studios behind the gallery for two reasons. One was so I could pay my bills, no matter how the gallery did or didn't do that month. And two, I missed the camaraderie of college. I missed those weekly powwows where everybody sat around and critiqued each other's work. Or if you got stuck, you could turn around to 5-year classmates who were working on paintings and say, "Hey man, I'm really stuck right here. Give me some ideas, give me some advice. Let's go get a beer." Having all the people around you that were also in that creative mindset and creating at the same time. So that, it kind of killed two birds with one stone, doing the studios behind the gallery. Plus it kind of it's really kind of made Bitfactory more of a well-known or a common name down there, because people know that there's just tons of stuff going on in that building. Everything from the gallery all the way back to the garage that I rent out for special events to the individual studios. And every one of those studios is different. I've got a kayak shop. I've got a massage therapist. I've got a recording studio. I've got several visual artists. I've got a graphic designer. I got all kinds of stuff in there. There's always something going on. I
think that's a really smart business model. And so how many studios are back there? And I know they vary in size.
They do. So I have not counting my personal studio, I have 13 studios and I have one small office space I rent out. And then I also started renting the garage at Bitfactory. It's literally the garage in the back of the building, but I rent that out I've had clothing shows, art shows, nonprofits. I've had all kinds of stuff back there.
It's a great space. And on a First Friday, it's cool to be able to walk through the gallery itself and then hit the backside and check out all the studios and just see who's doing what and where, and
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite things is when somebody comes down during the week to see, like during the weekdays to see me or do something with the building. They'll come in the gallery and we'll go out that side door, and all of a sudden they look down that long hallway and they go, "Oh God, I had no idea it was this big." I'm like, "No, this is cool as hell." It goes all the way to the alley. It's 128 or 130 feet long building. So, and it does not look that big from the outside at all,
It doesn't. Yeah. I think people are probably pretty surprised when they see, like, oh, wow, it keeps going here.
Yeah. And then, then there's upstairs. Oh my God,
Yeah. So are you full right now as far as your studios are concerned?
I've got one vacancy right now. I had a brand new tenant sign up in March, at the end of March. So she was going to start in April, and both her and her boyfriend got laid off. So I let her out of her lease.
Oh, I think I know exactly what artist you're talking about. They just moved to Denver. Yeah.
I don't know if she just moved. I know she was going to Rocky Mountain School of Design or whatever.
Oh, maybe it's not the same people I was thinking about.
But I don't know if she just moved here and started or not. But yeah, she really nice lady and everything. And I just, she paid her first month and never even got to move in. So I just let her, so I just let her out of the lease. So I've got one vacancy right now. But other than that, I'm full. And usually the vacancies don't last more than a couple of weeks. I've got a waiting list, and if somebody on the waiting list doesn't take it, usually I get a walk-in that takes it.
Where does those studios start at, and what do they go up to?
Price wise?
Yeah, price wise
So the first floor start at $625 or $650, and the second floors are $525, and that's gross. The only additional cost a tenant would have is if they wanted internet, they'd have to do that between themselves and the ISP of their choice.
Okay,
I have nothing to do with that.
That seems like a really reasonable price I would imagine, for Denver.
Compared to other places because I stay up on who else is renting studios and how much they are and everything. And there's places they're charging $800 and it's not even, it's not even your own room. Like all of my studios, it's a locked room. Everybody has 24/7 keyed access. Other places they're paying from $400 to $800 a month for a taped off space on the floor.
Wow.
So I think it's a pretty good deal. Like I said, it's 24/7 access. There's skylights in all the upstairs studios. There's windows in all the downstairs studios. So, I'm planning on putting in more windows too, because, I got to have a lot of natural light and everything. And I've got a really great group of tenants right now. I've got a couple that have been there almost from the very beginning. So they've been there for 5 years now. And I've got a couple other that are newer, but they're all just great tenants. We all get along great. Everybody's very friendly. If you do need help or, need somebody's opinion or something or input, whoever's in the building is usually very open to coming out and talking to you about something or giving their opinion about something.
Yeah, it seems like a great community of people.
Yeah, it is. And I wanted to say too that almost all of them are open every first Friday and third Friday. So I've only got a couple that don't do that, but that's because they are specifically just the office space is a property management company, so they're never open for that stuff. And then the other two that aren't open are like that's just their workspace. They just go there to paint or draw or whatever. They don't want anybody in there, which I totally get that too.
So with the gallery, you're the first gallery owner that we've really talked to. And how does that look like for an artist? Like when you sell a piece of somebody's art that you're showing, is there a percentage that the gallery takes? How does that work?
Yeah. So what I've been told and what I've gathered from talking to other gallerists, I do things way different. Because my mission statement is to work with emerging and up and coming artists mostly, I literally go through every submission. A lot of galleries won't do that. And then I only take a 30% commission from a sale. Most galleries are 50% in Denver. And I know at LA and New York, they get up to 60% sometimes. So,
wow.
But again, I wanted my business model, I wanted to make sure I didn't have to rely on those gallery sales. And as a working showing artist myself, I know if somebody takes a 30% or less commission, I don't have to worry about editing my prices to cover that. I'm comfortable without letting that go. If somebody takes a 50% commission, I've got to double my price, just to make sure I get my money. And I didn't want to put that stress on, especially with emerging and up and coming artists, because if they're trying to make that transition and becoming a full-time working artist, they don't need somebody gouging their pockets, that they need that money to get up and running and buy supplies and pay rent, and I don't. That's again, back to my business model, that I didn't want to have to worry about that. And 30% seems pretty fair, because I pay for all the advertising, putting you in the show, doing all the sales work that I can, even though I'm not really a salesman at all. Which is my one caveat to being a gallery owner is I'm a terrible salesman. But I'm lucky I'm in art, because art generally sells itself, But yeah, it's just a 30% commission. And I try to get everybody in that I can. It may take me 2 years, but right now well, before all this COVID crap hit, I was trying to book 12 to 14 months out. So I was already starting to do shows or think about shows for 2021. Well, my whole schedule for 2020 is just blown up. Yeah. So it may take me now 2 years to get to people, but I try to get everybody in that I can. You know, and there's some artists that I haven't worked with yet who are very good about every couple of months emailing me again, you know, which is great. But I still have their first email. And like I said, I go through every submission, and there's at some point, again, as long as it's presentable art, I will put it in front of the public. You know, it just may take me a while.
Right on. I mean, I think that says a lot about the gallery and you as a person. Like you said that you're not really the salesman, but I'll tell you what I gravitated to the first time that I was in there is that here I am talking to you, the gallery owner, and you're taking a moment with me. And a lot of times it's really busy in there, especially on a first Friday.
Yeah, it is.
But you know, I could just tell that you're down to earth. Like we could have a real conversation, and I don't always get that when I go into other galleries. So the fact that you were approachable, you're friendly, and you're well-spoken, you know, that checked all the boxes for me. Like, I love this place. And that's why that's why I kept coming back every month going, hey, you want to do the podcast? I'm like, he's going to get really sick of me pretty soon.
No. I really appreciate you coming back, and I really appreciate putting me on the podcast, man. I really do. But, you know, in line with what you just said, there was, when I was, you know, when I didn't have a gallery, when I didn't have shows all around, you know, I won't name them, but, you know, you can pick about the 5 biggest, most well-known galleries in town. And I would walk into those, and either nobody would talk to me, or they would tell me, don't even ask about showing here. I have my battery of artists. I don't talk to other people. Well, what the fuck is it? What are you doing with the gallery then?
Right.
You know, like, you know, I don't mean to sound like a hard ass about that, but that just seems dumb as hell.
I agree.
I mean, you don't know if you're turning away the next Matisse without even looking, you know? So I didn't want to be like that. And right after I got out of college, and before, you know, really focused on the band and everything, and I was still kind of bouncing between music and art. I mean, it was excruciating just trying to get a show. And like I said, I wanted Bitfactory to be that place to where people could come, and as long as they have, you know, they're a good artist and presentable, I'll get them in there, you know. And it gives them that name on the resume. So maybe, you know, some other bigger name gallery than mine will actually take them seriously and actually give them the time of day and talk to them about possibly being in a group show there, you know. And I've had a few artists that have done pretty well at my gallery, and then all of a sudden have taken off and started showing locally or nationally. And it's just so satisfying to see somebody take off like that. You know, it's kind of like, I don't have any children, but it's got to be like when your kid turns 18 and they go off to college. You're just like, oh, this is great. Like I've raised them. They're going off now into the world. It's kind of how I feel about these artists that have all of a sudden taken off and started showing, you know, a lot locally or even nationally.
Yeah, you gave them a shot, man. You got them that jumping off point to, you know.
But it's more about them getting successful, you know.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I could totally see how that would be a great feeling to know that you were, you know, pivotal in helping them, you know, get out there and get their work seen. And then it would be like having children and seeing them going off into the world, you know.
Something must be going on subconsciously. I keep going back to this children analogy. Oh, brother.
No, there's new children in your future.
No.
As an artist, that is.
No. Go ahead. Sorry.
Was the idea to have those studios always was that at the beginning, or did that just kind of evolve when you said, I'm going to have a gallery and then?
No, honestly, the studios initially were my main idea, just because I wanted that camaraderie. I wanted that circle of people that we could do, you know, we could sit down and have you know, like a weekly meeting and review each other's stuff and critique each other's stuff and all that kind of stuff. And the gallery kind of came secondhand with that, but it came quickly. The original idea was, let's have a bunch of studios. So we've got all those people like we had in art school around us all the time, so we can talk about stuff and critique each other's work. And well, hell, let's do a gallery too. That just made sense to put them together, you know, and not have one without the other. And luckily I found a building large enough to do that in. You know, there's not a whole lot of large buildings down there.
No, there isn't. I think you got it. You got in at the right time, right?
Yeah. Well, luckily I really got lucky and got in about I don't know, 8 months or so before the commercial bubble started taking off. And now it's just ridiculous down there. I mean,
I
it's
can't even
insane.
imagine.
I think the last time I looked at comparables, stuff was going for like $350 a square foot, which is just nuts. Yeah. I don't know how somebody can start a gallery and do that now, at that price.
Yeah, it's great that I really do love that business model of having the gallery and the studios. I think that's so smart.
Well, I was lucky too I went around and looked at a lot of the art districts in town. Rhino was just incredibly expensive and overpriced, and quite honestly, I didn't think it was worth the hoopla. Tennyson was just too small. Aurora doesn't really have one, but they were giving fantastic incentives to people who wanted to, because they got an area they want to try to start one in. But who wants to be the first one there when it's never even been heard of before? There's no foot traffic. There's no draw, because it was like a building, a block off Colfax with nothing around it. So there was no other like retail or anything right by it to draw people to it. You know what I mean? So I got really lucky, getting in that art district. I mean, it's got to be one of the busiest ones in Denver by far. And to get a big enough building to do it in. I still get people that come through there that don't realize, the gallery and the studios are in the same building. They'll come for one and not the other one. And then they're like, oh, hell, both of them are here, which is cool.
So on your typical show, does the gallery do pretty well as far as selling art?
Man, I my dad and my brother are both entrepreneurs and had their own companies and everything, and did sales and understand financial stuff really well, and are, projections and projecting sales and all that stuff. Excuse me. And my dad's always bugging me about projecting sales so I can try to get an idea of a budget. I mean, literally my budget is my operating expenses. That's it, which is minimal, mortgage, utilities, water, that kind of thing. And I use the example a lot, but I could have the same exact show 5 years in a row, different month or same month or different time of year or same time of year for those 5 years, and sales are going to be different every damn time. And I to this day, I still have no idea what that equation or magic formula is to say, okay, every month I'm going to be able to sell $12,000 worth of art, no matter if it's realism, expression, abstract, surrealism, pop art, whatever. There's just no way. So some months are just fantastic. I mean, just, like, I can't believe I just sold that. But, I never in a million years thought I'd sell that much art. Some months I don't sell anything at all. And some months I pay the bills. It's all over the place. And I do have one other repeating show. I've had a show twice, let's say, and 1 year it sells fantastic, and the next year it doesn't sell anything. And I just can't figure out why. Same amount of numbers to the door. And with the artists, the battery of artists I'm thinking of, it's their crowd, so their crowd always buys. So it's just every month it's so fickle. I have no idea how to project it.
Interesting. So you keep track of your foot traffic?
I do. I used to just do ticks in a book, and then one of my ex-tenants gave me one of those clicker things.
Clickers? Like I made that.
So every first Friday I do that, but during the weeks I just do tick marks in my book, because it's anywhere from 0 to 25 people through my door on a day. Okay. But first Fridays and third Fridays I have to use the clicker because there's so many. And first Friday, I'm sure there's about a 15% margin of error because I can't catch everybody, because I'll get into conversations with somebody, or I've got two doors, so I can't be watching both of them at the same time,
Right. Yeah. Or you got some yahoo trying to get you on a podcast, and there's 20 people walking through the door.
That guy just kept coming back.
What a jerk.
God, I got things to do. No, I'm kidding.
So what do you guesstimate your numbers are on a first Friday? Because
first Fridays is anywhere from 1,000 to 4,000 to the door.
Wow.
The caveat to that is it's only been 4,000 once, but so realistically, anywhere from 1,000 to 3,500.
Okay.
And it depends on time of year. It depends on what's going on. You would think August would be the busiest because they close Santa Fe down for August first Friday every year, but it's not. Now it might be the busiest overall for people down there, but not through my door. I usually get about 2,500, 2,700 on August first Fridays. The busiest one I ever had was November, because it coincided with Day of the Dead celebration down there, and I had like 41 or 4,200 to the door.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it's cool and it's great and everything, but at that volume, people aren't going to buy art, especially big
I was
stuff.
just thinking
I was
that.
thinking the same thing.
I bet they don't, because there's so many people, you can't really, I would feel weird about, going up to somebody and trying to buy something when there's, 1,000 people trying to talk to you.
Well,
yeah, I could see where that would be.
Plus, so the way I look at art is I'll get up and look at it, and I walk back across the room, look at it. You got to get a bunch of perspective on it. And generally that's how people look at art when they're buying it. You can't do that when there's 4,000 people coming through your door. It's just you're shoulder to shoulder all night long. But what that does give birth to is the people that come back later on in the week when there's nobody else, nobody around. They can sit there for an hour or two, look at it, talk to you about it, ask questions about the artist, about the painting, go have lunch, come back, look at it some more, then decide to buy it, kind of thing, Yeah. And so I'll probably get about 15 to 25% return traffic the week after First Friday, I'd say.
Wow, that's pretty good.
And I'm open from Tuesday to Saturday, and it's pretty much a ramp up. Tuesday is 0 to maybe 3, 4, 5 people. And then by Saturday, I'm getting up to like 25, 30 through the door. Unless there's a field trip or something in the art district, during the week, then I might get 50 through my door.
Now, obviously that trend. Is there a particular day that you feel like you sell more art on a particular day?
Honestly, no. I'm sure if I went back to my sales records, I could definitely pinpoint time of year, weeks of the month, and days. But I have sold everything on. I've even come in on a Sunday and sold stuff, when I'm closed. So it's just whenever people get there and want it,
Mm-hmm.
Probably closer to the weekend, I probably sell more.
Okay. That's what I was kind of wondering, if towards the weekend, Friday, Saturday.
You think there'd be a correlation between increase in foot traffic and increase in sales, but there isn't always necessarily that correlation.
Okay.
I might get 2 people through on a Wednesday and they both might buy something, and 30 people through on a Saturday and nobody buys anything. That's why for me, it's so hard to get my head around this and try to project sales and whatnot. It's just so liquid, for lack of a better term. It's just all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I've just a couple more questions. I know that you need to get out of here pretty quick, but I want to back up to your art real quick. And
okay.
So where does a original piece of yours start, and what does it go up to typically?
Price-wise?
I like to talk about pricing and kind of where people are at.
I want to say my highest price pieces right now are $5,500, and I think the lowest are $200.
Okay.
Now I've also got prints that will be anywhere from $50 to $400 as well, of some pieces. I don't do prints for all my pieces. I do prints for some, and it's always a limited edition run of 10.
Oh, nice. I like that you do that it's a limited edition.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think open-ended prints are just ridiculous unless you're, extremely famous and making millions. There's no point in doing open-ended prints.
I agree. So you have something for everybody then. And
try to.
All the price ranges there. Now, if somebody was interested in like a large piece of yours, do you work with them? Not necessarily like lowering your price, but would you do like a payment plan type of thing where you took like 50% down or something, and then they could pay it off over time?
I've done payment plans. I have a little bit of flexibility on price. Just because I want X amount of dollars for a piece doesn't mean that everybody's going to have that. And some people may love one of my huge canvases and, can't afford $5,500. So I'll work with them a little bit on that too. And then I'm also, I try to do one sale a year where I knock everything 50% off for like 24 hours. That hasn't gotten a whole lot of traction yet though.
But that's interesting. I mean, that's you're the first artist that we've talked to, and this is our 28th episode. So you're the first person that we've talked to, artist that has done like a 50% off sale. There's other different models, but that's interesting to hear.
Well, yeah, and I got the idea of having one sale a year from another artist actually, but I thought 50% off because that really opens up who can buy what dimension wise. Somebody might be able to afford a 24 by 36 painting, but they really want the 48 by 72 or something. You know what I mean? And if it's half off, they can afford that. But it really hasn't, like I said, taken off like I thought it would. Mm-hmm. I haven't sold a whole lot doing that. I would like to. And the other, I know a lot of artists might kind of feel like that devalues their work or themselves or something, but I don't feel that way at all. Plus, at some point, I'm going to run out of room. I mean, it's just pragmatism. I can't store all my paintings that don't sell forever. Where am I going to work?
Right.
Know?
Right. That makes sense.
I'm going to end up on a hoarder's show or something. You have to walk this very specific path through my house.
We know artists like that.
Well, what's the point though? I mean, yeah, I could not do that and just keep everything I don't sell forever, all that. But that's not why I make art. I make art for people to see and enjoy and get something out of. If I could make a living selling everything I do for $300, I would, but I can't. Yeah. Not only just because of my bills, but because of materials, time, labor, all that stuff.
Are you big on the social media? Do you do a lot of social media outside of like posting about your truck project right now? But are you good with Instagram and
yeah, I think it's a mob mentality cesspool, but yeah, I do it.
Yeah, it is a cesspool out there,
especially right now, man.
Yeah, it's just terrible. But so I do it. It's kind of I do it a lot. I have my own personal accounts. Then I have accounts for the gallery, and then I have accounts as my artist alias. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and Tumblr.
What's the best way if somebody wants to buy your stuff or look at your artwork? What's the best way to find you?
Well, for the gallery, bitfactory.net or email info@bitfactory.net. For my own personal art, my website's wmaxthomason.com or info@wmaxthomason.com.
Okay. And
I do commissions, I do private shows, I do, whatever.
Great. We'll make sure that we have all that information in the episode notes. I'm going to ask you one more question and I'll let you go, I promise.
Oh, that's fine.
Because you have this particular business model where the studios are really what, carries everything and you don't have to worry about selling art through your gallery, you're in a better position than I would imagine at most other galleries that may have, that's all that they do is sell art. And so if they're not selling art, then they're kind of stuck, or, they're renting a space. They don't actually own the space. What does the future hold for Bitfactory? Are you just kind of waiting for this, see how this thing kind of shakes out? Do you anticipate doing like some kind of virtual? Because I've seen a lot of galleries start to do like a virtual show in the interim while they're trying to figure out when they can start opening up to people. What do you foresee in the future for Bitfactory and the gallery?
Well, as soon as the no gatherings over 50 people limitation is lifted, I'm going to be open to do it. Like I said, I've got that show on the walls. It's ready to go. So if as of June 1st, you can have gatherings more than 50 people, we'll do our opening on the third Friday of June. If not, I'll open in July. If not in July, I'll open in August. I mean, it's all ready to go. And that's what's blowing up the rest of the schedule for this year. The virtual thing, I don't see a point to it, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that to sound, I don't mean to sound crappy or anything like that. My show hasn't opened yet, so nobody's seen it. So why am I going to give a virtual show before it's open? You know what I mean? Number two, I'm such a perfectionist. I'm not going to walk around with my iPhone filming everything. I'd have to have a Steadicam of some kind. I'd have to edit, do voiceover, all that kind of stuff. And the Art District Board has been very supportive during all this. And they've got this whole virtual tour thing going for all the galleries and stuff, but they're also giving a time limitation. Well, I don't think I could get every piece shot and, talk about every piece in the timeline that they're providing. So I just don't really see any value to it for myself. I think for other people it might be a great value. I'm just not in that position, I don't know what the future is going to look like. I don't know if my foot traffic is going to disappear. I don't know if First Fridays are going to crash, because the whole deal is they say anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000 people are milling around down there on a First Friday. Well, is that all of a sudden going to drop to 100 people? And if it does it really matter for me? Because, like we discussed earlier, I don't do a whole lot of sales on First Fridays. I can count how many times on a First Friday I've sold pieces on one hand just because they're so busy with flow and foot traffic. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know that it's really going to have an effect on me yet. And if it does, if it'll even be that big of an effect,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Half the time I say an answer and I'm thinking in my head, does that make sense? Is that really how it should be sounding? So
no, it did.
Have you thought of that far ahead where, what does that look like? Do you, if it is like a kind of a regular First Friday kind of free for all, are you going to have to limit people in the gallery so they can social distance? Are you just going to
that's just it. The art district's already said that they're not going to do First Fridays officially until the restrictions are lifted.
Okay.
So I have no issue with that. So I'm not going to do anything for an opening reception or anything on a new exhibition until that's lifted as well, because there's no point to it. I could go be open right now, but I could almost guarantee you I'm not going to have any foot traffic. Maybe a couple of people on Saturday, just because everybody's still wary. Everybody's still not quite sure what the hell's going on. Half the public could give a shit about all this. The other half is like, you got to wear a mask in the bathroom of your own house. It's just kind of going everywhere, So I think the easiest and the smartest thing to do is, just, for me anyway, for my gallery, for Bitfactory, is just to wait until all those, all the limitations are lifted and I can just go on back to business as normal. And like I said, I have the luxury of doing that because I do have those studios helping me out right now. I really feel for some of the other gallery owners I know that they don't even own the building, they're renting it. So they're missing rent payments. I wouldn't be surprised if we lost a few galleries out of this, which is sad because I think we've already lost too many in the 5 years I've been open.
Yeah, it's changed a bit down there over time. I think it's great that you're in that position where you just can wait till you can have people back in the gallery, because as much as I appreciate people trying to figure out a different way of doing things, like when I go see art, I want to see it in person. I don't want to just look at it. I mean, it's fine to look at somebody's website, but I want to actually stand there in front of it and take it all in. And I don't know. It's just not the same.
Even the best photograph of a piece of art is still a photograph of a piece of art. And by that, I mean, I'm not trying to discount photography at all. What I'm saying is it just flattens out the piece you're taking a picture of. If you take a picture of one of my paintings, it might look great in the picture, but it's not at all how it looks in real life. It's really hard to capture something like that on a digital format. That being said, I've done a ton of online sales and social media sales, of my own personal art. I don't understand it because I need to see it in person. I need to look at it, mull it over, ponder it, look at it from a couple of different angles, that kind of thing. You can't do that in a digital format. But again, I'm sure that there's some galleries down there that's they're praying for that because that's how they're going to pay their bills. Yeah. They hope this virtual tour thing works, and I hope it does. But if this crap went on for like 6 or 8 months and I started losing tenants over it, then I'd be in a different position. I'd have to start rethinking things. But as it stands right now, Bitfactory's in no, there's no worry of Bitfactory going anywhere.
Good to hear, man.
That's awesome.
Do I get to ask you guys a couple questions?
Yeah, if you want to.
What got you into this whole podcast setup and doing it specifically about art?
So Wes was he'd already started this, a podcast and had done a bunch of research and bought equipment, had no idea that he was doing it. And he lives in Rapid. Before we were doing the podcast, I'd only talk to him every few months or whatever. And in conversation, it came out that he had already started a podcast. And I was like, really? Like, I'd like to start a podcast myself. And so in conversation, we decided, well, maybe we should, partner up and do a podcast, separate from what he was doing. And so we kicked around a bunch of ideas, and, he's a photographer and really interested in photography, and that's what I do for a living. But I thought, if I'm just talking to photographers all the time, that would just bore me. And one of the things that really jazzed me and I always enjoyed was when I got asked by a publication or got an assignment to go do an artist profile. Mm-hmm. And I loved going into artist spaces and spending like an afternoon in their studio and doing a nice portrait or a couple portraits of them and maybe shooting some of their work and just spending time with them and, kind of having a conversation like we are right now. Mm-hmm. And, finding out who they are and what they do and kind of some of their beliefs and, and there's that common thread that runs through all the creative arts, and you can always find that common ground. And a lot of times you get turned on to other artists or other techniques or things that you never thought about. And it was always I'd always walk away really energized and excited about that experience. It was always really rewarding. And so after pondering all the different subjects that we were interested in, what we could do, we decided that, talking to visual artists or anything, gallery owners, and we haven't talked to any of the museums yet, but eventually we'd like to talk to, curators of museums.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
and art historians, because Colorado is rich in very an important piece in American art. Colorado has always been a part of that. So there's a multitude of subjects for us to explore. And Wes was down, and so we started. Because I've been a photographer for so long, I already knew a ton of artists, so I just needed to, approach them and see if they'd be willing to do that. And you know how it goes. You talk to one person, they turn you on to 5 or 6 other people, and it just kind of snowballs. So
nice.
that's been our journey, man. And it's been really fun.
Well, that's awesome. I want to say thanks for doing this, you guys. This is fantastic. I wish I'd known about it sooner, but I think this is really cool. And I really like it. It's nice to be able to have a place to sit down and just talk art and not all the other crap going on. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's what we want to do is, part of it was, the business of art, thanks to, people like Bob Ragland. That was kind of the impetus, is like, let's talk about art, but let's give some value back to artists that are listening, then how they can maybe do something different that they never heard of before.
Right. Well, that's the other thing too, is before the gallery experience, all I knew was fine art. I knew there was graphic design out there. There was certain commercial aspects of it. Right. Well, it never occurred to me that as an artist, I can go out and get some job putting a piece on the side of somebody's building to help pay the bill. Not necessarily one of my pieces, but some piece that pays the bill, so I can go back and spend the next 2 weeks painting on one of my paintings. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's so much I've learned about just the whole art community and how people survive in it since I've started the gallery up. It's been really cool.
It is cool to hear what people do, and it's been interesting to see the different ways that they go about it. And then there's the things that we hear like almost every artist say that like that validates a particular idea. It's been cool to see the breadth of it.
Yeah, I bet. Right on. Well, cool. I hope I did all right.
You did great.
You did fantastic.
You did fantastic. Bill. And I knew you would be awesome. A great interview, and I'm so glad that you were willing to do it, and we had the opportunity to do this. And I really sincerely appreciate the time that you gave us tonight. So thank you.
Next time I see you in person, Todd, I can't think of her name right now, but there's a conservationist in Denver you guys should interview. She fixed one of my paintings, and this was a few years ago. Something fell over and went through one of my canvases. That little dancer canvas, actually. There's a hole in it that she fixed. But when I took it over to her to fix, she was working on something for the Vatican, this is wrong, but it was like a Raphael or something she was restoring for the Vatican. Oh, wow. So I think she'd be a really interesting possible interview for you guys, because it's another thing that I did not know was out there as an artist, that I can go restore these, refurbish and restore paintings or works of art for a living and still go home and paint at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love to talk to her. I think what those folks do, and I've seen some things on, CBS Sunday Morning where they interview some of those people that do art restoration and all that. And it's intriguing work. Yeah.
The fact that she could, first of all, match my paint perfectly, let alone somebody from the Renaissance period,
right?
The tones, the hue. I mean, you could never tell that it was patched or refurbished or whatever. It was insane. I still can't get my head around how you could possibly do that, because I can't match my own paint sometimes.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh man. Well, Bill Thomason, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is fantastic. I just really appreciate it. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, man. Anytime. And
we appreciate you.
We'll have you on again when things all shake out again, and
please do.
Kind of get somewhat back to normal, and we'll have you on, and you can talk about your next show, and we'll promote it for you. Okay.
Fantastic. I'd love that.
Yeah, we'll come down to you, because I come down to Denver about once a month and do this. So typically.
Cool.
So yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, right on. That'd be great.
All right. For the Tenant Podcast, this is Todd Pearson.
And this is Wes Brown.
Have a great week.